Good afternoon, all. I see there are people joining in, so let's wait for another minute. All right, I see we have a lot of people joining in, so another 10 seconds, please. Well, thank you for your patience. A warm welcome to everyone who has joined our webinar today. Now, logistic and supply chain have been undergoing tremendous transformation. The customer demand has also gone a sea change. That has implications for the supply chain, omni-channel fulfillment, warehousing, and transportation. Today, we will discuss about the warehouse management part of supply chain, an area that is so vital in fulfillment. Now, Yash has been conducting these webinars in this space. In continuation to this is our fourth webinar, which is migrating SAP EWM to EWM. Now, to demystify this, we have on the panel today 3 experienced gentlemen with us. Mr. Jude Xavier, AVP, who also leads the SAP practice. He has over 35 years of experience, including SAP. Also, Mr. Jason Kite, solution architect with 20 years of experience in logistics, warehouse management, EWM. And lastly, Mr. Kalyan Gandhi, solution architect, again with 20 years of implementing WM, EWM solution. Now put together, we have over 60 years of SAP experience. So without much ado, let's dive into today's discussion. I would like to start with you, Jason. As a business using warehouse management system, SAP WM, what are some of the considerations that one should think on before moving to S4HANA?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Naveen, for this. So moving to S4, let me tell you guys, everyone here, moving to S4 is a migration project like any other. So as you all have, those who are experiencing that process or those who are planning to, let me tell you, this is a great experience. If it's done correctly, your business should reap in the rewards of hardware from both hardware side and software technology perspective. So, but the fun thing is you got to do your homework. So I'm assuming you are here to look at your journey. If you are in your stage where you're thinking to go ahead, what you can do today to make your experience as smooth as possible. So, do your homework. So you got to understand where you are. You've got to analyze your parts of the system, what kind of systems you have, you do some checks in that and make sure your systems are compatible with S4HANA, right? So that's something you want to do as a part of your, initial checks. Other thing you want to look at is, before you go to S4, do you really need to upgrade your systems, for instance? Because if you are looking at migration, for instance, you're not looking at Greenfield implementation, probably you want to move your existence solutions to the new system, right? So obviously you want to take a look if your system needs any kind of upgrade. So that's something you want to check from that consideration perspective. Also, look at your processes. You probably want to keep the same functionalities. So are there some of the processes you probably want to define or redefine? You probably want to change some of the processes going forward. So that's your opportunity. So you've got to re-engineer your process, so that's your time. Again, other thing you want to look at is also from the hardware side, are your hardwares appropriate for the S4 migration? That's something you can talk to your technical teams and make a move. But I'm just saying that these are some of the things you can look at. And remember to document your landscape requirement. That's very important. You got to note down everything. What are the things you are working on? What are the documents you have? Yeah. And then also look at some of the things you have in your production system. Remove some of the data which you don't need, right? Clean up, do some cleanup things. Look at some of the quality boxes or the sand boxes. Remove some of the non-productive unused data. So that's the time, have that things in place. Create a smaller and leaner test system, so it'll help you in the long term. So these are some of the things you want to look at from your consideration and readiness perspective. And not but least, security. You want to make sure that your data is protected, right? You are going onto a future solution. It's going to be on cloud, and all the things are going to take place. So make sure your data is protected, sensitive with the data, avoid the risks, all those things you got to look at. So those are some of the things for you, Naveen.
Right. Thank you so much, Jason. So now this next question is for Kalyan. So what is the roadmap for customers moving from ECC to SAP S4HANA, especially in the context of WM? What options do they have, Kalyan?
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, we have seen every customer who is preparing themselves to move to S4HANA landscape and WMS, they do have options. Again, based on their operations, what we recommend, they can have their inventory maintained at storage location level, what standard S4HANA offers, where they can maintain their inventory. And for a clients who are on very lean warehouse operations, when we say lean, well, those who are doing very simple inbound, simple outbound process, who are involved in 3PL like subcontracting manufacturing. So those clients we will, like, again, they can go for stockroom management, having bins and those sort of things, where they can have like a simple inbound and simple outbound. And whereas the next generation WMS system, what SAP is recommending, and even as a consultants, we recommend them is to adopt EWM. And EWM have for S4HANA comes with both sidecar as well as embedded. Whereas in embedded, when the clients are looking for, we recommend them to go try out with the basic one, where the clients who got quality and production integrations and a simple basic warehousing process with these integrations, we recommend them to go for the basic, and it can be scaled up with embedded going forward. And as S4HANA offers even a sidecar one, the clients who want to work on a very decentralized mode based on their operation and scales level, and how it gonna be integrating with their manufacturing. So based on that, we do the recommendations, and that is something which we evolve their processes and operations. Warehouse, how much the complex warehouse got the complexity. Based on that, what the available options, we do recommend them.
Thank you so much, Kalyan. So coming back to you, Jason. So we often hear of multiple options of SAP EWM, some of which just Kalyan had covered, that is decentralized, sidecar, embedded. So what are the benefits of SAP EWM sidecar decentralized option over the embedded solution?
Great. So this is one of my favorites. So, so firstly, let me say that so the customers, can choose between the two options. So I know we're talking about the decentralized here, but let me tell you here very clearly. So you got to have an option depending on what your business needs are. The thing is, you can go for either embedded EWM or you can go for decentralized EWM. So sidecar is what we call as a decentralized EWM. So you got the options here. The embedded EWM actually also subsequently also have some basic and advanced functions. If you were to go through that route, and if you are a small and mid-sized warehouse, probably you would go that route, right? So now from the decentralized options perspective, so because this is decentralized, obviously there are a lot of things, you can actually So the deployment itself is on a separate level. The EWM itself can be deployed on a separate server, and that can be connected to SAP S4HANA. So now the point is, what are the benefits here, right? Why would you do that? So the important factors you want to look at is, for instance, how big your warehouse is. Say, for instance, you have a global operations, in multiple countries, multiple warehouses. You probably want to, think that, look, this is something, you could be a logistics leader in your organization, and you don't want to compromise your processes than the rest of the company. So those are some of the things, you have to look at. And then, yes, if you go that route, that means you are able to manage your higher volumes, large data. So that's there. You have your scalability. You are able to avoid the risk, right? So you have, because all the processing happenings, you have the large distribution centers, and if for any scenario, one fine day, if the ECC system is down, then your warehouse, your WMS is going to be unimpacted. Your guys can still do the work, and they can still do their jobs, and all those things can happen. So that doesn't impact if you were to go through the sidecar option. So that's the thing. And on top of that, there are some of the things you can do in this option, which you could not in the other options, is that material flow systems. So if you have, automated large warehouses, those things can work. You can also look at automated storage and retrieval systems. So some of those functionalities works really well in the sidecar. So now the thing is, most importantly, you want to know that you don't have to actually look into, if you were to hook up your sidecar system, you could actually connect to anyone. So you could hook up to any ERP system. It doesn't have to be your S4. This is just for your information. As I said, so let's say you have global operations, you may not be using the same system around the world. Probably Latin American countries have different systems than the European ones, so you can connect to. But if your decentralized system on the WMS can connect to anyone, so that's the beauty of that. And as I've mentioned, the benefits are apart, and you just got to decide your preferences there. Navin.
Right. Perfect. Thank you, Jason, for explaining that to us. Coming back to you, Kalyan. So, based on your experience, when considering a move from EWM to WM, what typical challenges does a company goes through? If you could elaborate on that.
Well, this is a big one actually. Companies will have a lot of challenges. Both like one of the big challenges what we have seen is a change management, like training the all levels of users, right from the top management to the last picker. So that is where we have to ensure that all the role-based matrix is well catered, sitting with the business, and those ones are trained and well versed before we go live. Another big challenge you will see is the business preparedness, like cutover of the business activities. There are two cutovers, what we say, technical cutover and a business prepare. Like preparing your warehouse and labeling and rack systems with aligned with the storage zones, with the storage types. Those ones, it's a big activity. And before we even start wall-to-wall physical inventory, that is again a big challenges with the timelines what we have seen. Some of the organizations, even some organizations, they are reluctant to shut down because of the 24/7 operations, where we have to strategize in such a way where we go partially taking each zone, storage zone, into the system go live. So it will be more staggered approach. That are the challenges what we have seen. And technology side, we see like these are the new news areas which IT support has to work from the client side. Like if at all they have to create a node storage area, what are the sequence they have to. And migration activity, again, it is a big one from WM to EWM. We have to consider downloading the data and migrating the stock, inventory stock, and closing that cutover, again, closing those open activities. Those sort of migration strategies and tactical thinking we have to get in place. Where in a nutshell, what I can say is we have to work closely with the operations and the warehouse managers to see how we can smoothly transition them to a new system. Yes.
All right. All right. Thanks. Thank you so much, Kalyan. So this next question is for Jude. So Greenfield versus Brownfield. I'm sure this question would have been there in the dark, and very few people go about answering this. So what option should customer choose and why? If you could speak on that.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Naveen. So one of the considerations, right, that is very important for choosing an approach is when you look at S4HANA, right, it's a new data model. So it's a new technology, it's a new data model. It comes with advanced capabilities and all that. So when you're considering a move from WM to S4HANA, there are two considerations that you need to look at, chiefly, I would say. And this is, I'm assuming that the WM is there as part of the SAP ERP system itself. So you're trying to move your entire ERP system from ERP to S4HANA along with the WMS, right? So along with SAP WM. Now, there, how are your processes? Are you happy with the processes the way they are? Is it working well for you? Do you want to carry on the same way that you are doing there? And how much of customization is there? Are you happy with the way that things are being customized? Or is there scope for changing something? This is one important consideration. If the answer to this is yes, then look at the second. What about the data? Today, the data is one of the most valuable assets a company has. So you have built in over about, let's say, about 10 years of data running SAP. Do you want all the data to be ported into your new system, S4HANA? Or do you want to carry on to start from scratch again? So the answer to the question, if you want the data, if the processes are stable, then I would say you go with the migration approach. Because what happens with the migration approach is you get all your master data along with the customization. Customization is never a problem, even in the case of Greenfield. But the data is something that comes over during the time of migration, right? So that's a very important aspect that you need to think about. But however, on the flip side, now, like I said, the S4HANA comes with a completely new stack with capabilities where you can really try to engineer your project, your complete system completely new, and bring in those capabilities which were not there in WM. And you can re-engineer your business process, with the way S4HANA is scheduled to do, right? So with the new user experience and the analytics that go along with it. If that is the case, then here is an opportunity for you to re-engineer your process. Then I would suggest that you go the Greenfield way. So these are some considerations I would say you need to take into consideration before you go into that. Because part of a migration project is custom code migration, which is such an important aspect and so critical, right, in the whole process. But that goes away if you're choosing a Greenfield operation, because most of the processes, probably the custom code, what you have developed, probably is met by SAP S4HANA standard functionality. So that does away with most of the stuff that is legacy right now. Think about all these things, where your balance, where your it's easier and faster. I mean, definitely much, I would say, easier when you're really doing a migration compared to a Greenfield implementation. And in terms of cost, it's much less. But the flip side of it is the functionality that you get may be, you'll be doing what you're doing in SAP ERP, what you're going to do in SAP S4HANA. These are some of the considerations.
Right. Thank you. So, taking question from your the answer that you've given. So, a follow-up question here: if in case, let's say, if I choose to go the brownfield way, so what challenges have you faced while doing the conversion? I mean, can you tell us the problems that you've faced? How you overcome those problems?
Yeah. So again, these challenges, like, in a typical migration, right, there are several challenges that we face while doing this. Over the course of a year, through the experience, I think some of the challenges have not become that, they've become easier to face. One of the important things is the customer vendor integration, right? And this has implications on the EWM side because you have the business partner master data in terms of customers and vendors. Every movement that you do in WM or EWM has a business partner associated with. So the migration of that, has been always a kind of challenge. Another, when you're migrating from WM to EWM, in the WM stack, so you never had picking by serial numbers from the bin at the bin level. So you used to have some kind of workaround solutions by using either handling unit management or using storage unit management and trying to capture the serial number at the warehouse level and manage your process. But in the EWM, it's part of their standard functionality. So you need to sit down with the business and try to find out exactly what it is. And putting those serial numbers into the EWM and trying to standardize it, that's a big challenge by itself. Right? So that's another challenge. Another challenge that we face is the custom code. So technically, WM and EWM, there are always plenty of custom code enhancements that are always done. And how do we kind of customize these? How can we negotiate these customizations in EWM as we go forth, right? With the different options that are there. That itself is like a mini project in itself. So these are some of the challenges. Of course, there are other things like your integration with other modules, your integration with transportation, and if there are some automations involved, then it brings some complexities to it, adjustments of all those kind of things, and so on. So these brings in their unique challenges, but by and large, these are some of the challenges that we have faced in the while migrating from WM to EWM.
Great. Thank you so much, Jude, for answering that. Now, all of you would agree that COVID has changed the way supply chain is being driven. So there are challenges in getting qualified labor. So, Kalyan, how do we solve these problems? How does SAP EWM deal with these problems? Can you throw some light on this?
Yeah, there are two things. The labor shortage in current world is a big problem. So technically, how we really help the business, that technically and even process-wise, let me put that way. Technically, we are encouraging clients to get into next-gen mobile technology, which are very user-friendly, where UI and UX are user-friendly, so that even a new labor can be trained and can be utilized in a short turnaround. That's again one thing what we are encouraging the customers go for that. And another thing what we are looking is how we can really utilize the existing resource who is working by leveraging task interleaving, which is already there in EWM, but we are encouraging customers to use that one. So at least 30-40% of existing resources, we can efficiently use them. Say, for example, someone is doing the put away. While coming back, he can pick the items instead of an idle run. So that's where we can optimize that. And other stuff, where we are utilizing even the slotting in a new dimension way, where we are encouraging the clients to utilize the planned demand plan once the demand is frozen and MRP is run. Look into that and organize your warehouse in such a way you can have it slotting in align with that whatever the demand is coming. So where you have already got the procurement proposal based on your MRP, so that we know that. And third one, what we are even to an extent, we are looking into the processes to look into the inventory turn-ups and how this on a high level way we are working even with the planners, where we can go across the network of warehouses, where we can utilize the demand patterns and optimize the inventory within the network, so that we can move out this around 30-40% of inventory, which is a slow moving, based on the networking that can be moved and better utilized, rather than again waiting for new procurement or new items coming. So within the network, what are the items based on your demand in the market, we can really use it. In that way, we are helping the business. So these are the various ones, various options what we are offering. One is, as I said, that RF and task interleaving are the main items, and automation. Other one is where we are helping the clients to find where they can really apply MFS, material flow systems, or automatic retrieval systems, if they can. And the latest technology, what everyone is keen and clients have shown much interest is warehouse robotics. That is something which we are encouraging the customers to really look into that and do the investment, because this is the disruption what no one expected, and there is a big shortage. So where we can really use robotics as well as manpower, where combination of those two. So these are the various options what we are offering to the clients where they really look into. And SAP EWM is quite scalable, and it can integrate with warehouse robotics, even if it is a third party one. Even SAP recently has launched SAP warehouse robotics. Okay. So this ones we are trying to explain the clients what the efficiency they can gain out of it.
Just to add to that, right, Naveen, I mean, we were in a supply chain event sometime back in Chicago, and we saw that, DHL freight, right? So the amount of robotics that they use in picking and packing and things like that, right? So they have even
Okay, I think we lost Jude. What Jude means is the way GHL
came
is
up.
using. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we got you back.
These are the So these are areas where kind of the new technologies are making waves. Again, when you look at demand, right? So the integration of demand, supply and demand, the e-commerce portals, they are putting extreme demand on the supply chain, because the customers are getting used to kind of overnight deliveries, right? Reverse logistics. Typical warehouse systems are not really capable of, handling these kind of things, and a lot of customization which needs to be done. These are putting a lot of strain on the way planning is done and the way fulfillment is done at the warehouse level. So the integration between advanced planning and warehouse, integration between transportation management and warehouse, and the last mile connectivity, a lot of technologies are being used right now. The artificial intelligence, machine learning, predictive analytics, all these are making waves, right? And so with the S4HANA, you have a platform that where you can use the business technology platform to connect with all these technologies, using all these technologies, and then kind of marry the solutions that are out there in the market in order to do your supply chain fulfillment.
Right.
Yeah.
Kalyan, you want to add something, is it?
No, what Jude said is right. Artificial intelligence and machine learning, which we are recommending to the clients to utilize it for the demand patterns, so that they can they know what's the demand coming, and accordingly they can align their resources. So on the execution part, we are encouraging robotics. On the planning side also, we are aligning with the latest demand planning which S4HANA offers. They do have the certain tools for the demand planning. And within the warehouse also, we do have analytics like warehouse insights, which we are utilizing so that resources are better optimized.
Got it. Thank you so much, Kalyan. Thanks to you. This next question is for you, Jason. So what are the technological challenges that we face in warehousing? I mean, how do we manage resourcing, analytics? How do we leverage data? Can you talk on this?
Yeah, sure. So now in some of those things already Jude and Kalyan talked about it. So, with a lot of technological challenges in the warehouses, for instance, there's always a instability of the data in terms of connections. There are a lot of, it's not enough IT infrastructures. So the question is, with all these technological challenges, warehouses are struggling with all those full staff and the optimum performances. So what can be done really? Can we use technology to our advantage? That's a burning question, and everyone's just got in their mind, because all the time warehouses are having all these issues with something is not printing or something is not happening. Are those devices, they're all connected? Probably those are some of the burning questions. So I would say Can you use technology to advantage? I would say the answer is definitely yes. So what you can do today, let's start using some sustainable practices. Let's do that. So what you can do today as a warehouse manager, get your guys out, ask them to reduce the warehouse wastage. Ask them to reduce some heating and cooling needs. So those are some of the things you have to practice. Use some eco-friendly packaging materials. And then go for automation. Look for the warehouse automations. You can use artificial intelligence and machine learning. These are some of the things. They use algorithms really. And those technologies make practical decisions for the warehouse, where the data which is gathered from the sensors which are fitting in those machines, those patterns will be picked up, and it's going to recommend a faster replenishment times when you run out of the stock, or it'll give you a shorter route to your picking bins, and also obviously, and then you'll have a better inventory positioning in terms of locating it. So those are some of the great advantages. So this is the time really the warehouses and the companies needs to think about your interconnected technologies, right? And those technologies will form an ecosystem of the entire business operations. So from the supply to the delivery, it's all governed by artificial intelligence. This is what we're saying, and this is happening. Some of the customers are already doing that. So the goods which are received at the warehouse, they're all identified, sorted, processed, packaged, pulled for shipments. It's all happening automatically, end to end, with a minimal margin for errors. So you can imagine, the robotics I've just mentioned, this is going to help reduce a lot of dependency on the manpower, and it's definitely going to help a lot of safety, which means you're using machines, so you've got safety features. The workers will be out of the dangerous jobs, and some of the optimizations can happen on the picking and packing and shipping. Those kind of things can happen. So really, I would say implementing technology into the warehouse is going to be the most cost-effective and the quickest way to increase your warehouse efficiency in operations. So guys, this is my 2 cents on that. So
right, Jason. So we have covered close to, I would say, the brownfield versus greenfield. We have covered in terms of how EWM is helpful. So also, Jason, if you could help us on, let's say, the deployment a customer can look. So a cloud versus on-premises version, or versus hybrid deployment. So what would your take on that? I mean, what is your experience?
Yeah, so that's a great question. This is a basic fundamental question. If you decide, to migrate, or you want to do greenfield, it is necessary for you to plan your deployment options in terms of, what are your business needs are, look at your budgets and resources. So really there are 3, main questions which is, coming into the customer's mind, where they want to place their solutions and systems. Are you looking at the on-prem or versus cloud editions? What is the best option, and how to choose the best for you? And then, most importantly, that decision, how that decision is going to help you, your business. So those are some of the things. So really, my short answer would be, you can look at from a top level. There are 2, main delivery platforms. So from the on-prem perspective, on-prem is going to give you a maximum control. Whereas if you are in cloud, if you go for a cloud hosting solution, so there you will have a faster time to value. So you'll be able to get your systems in a faster time. So those are some of the things. So, but they're always, both have got their pros and cons, right? So you've got to understand, right? So there's some business will prefer on-prem, some will prefer cloud options now. So, but again, in cloud, if you go, so you've got one more option, where is hybrid model, right? So hybrid model is where, say, for instance, you have your warehouse as a decentralized, and then you've got your ERP S4 on a different system. So your S4 is on a different system. It could be on-prem, or it could be your cloud, and your warehouse is on decentralized, which is your on-prem, right? So this is a hybrid model. So you can have that option as well. So there are ways, so things can happen. So what happens is basically your on-prem is an internal system. It's where you actually manage your own servers. You've got your own people and who manage that. You also have to make sure your systems are taken care. All those technical aspects, the responsibility lies with you, and you've got to take care of that. You test your systems and all those things. Whereas in cloud, obviously SAP takes care of everything. They maintain all those servers, the upgrades are all done by those guys. And then, the cloud versions are available to both private and the public editions if you want a public. So there are some of the multiple variations, but let's not go there. So those are some of the details you can work out when you make those decisions. But the goal here is that between the on-prem and cloud, you can always decide which way you want to go in terms of your deployment. If you have your to be managed by IT staff of or if you want to give it to your SAP. So those decisions you can make, some of the assessments, and also in terms of what's your planning around controlling, upgrading those systems, or do you want to leave with SAP? And then some of the things about implementation time. Do you have enough time? Do you want to wait to get everything done by or you want SAP best practices and pre-configured solutions? So between those things, you can make the decisions between the on-prem versus cloud. So those things will help you a long term. I mean,
got it. Thank you, Jason, for answering that. Coming back to you, Kalyan. So what happens, let's say, if my organization is on a journey to move towards S4HANA, and we decide to implement only EWM and TMS first, and then maybe move to the core models. So what would be your recommendation in that case?
Yeah, good question. Actually, this is the one which we always we have this question from the clients when they are thinking of moving to S4HANA. So what SAP recommends in this situation to go for a decentralized one, gradually when you move to S4HANA core modules, you have to again go for another instance. So SAP recommendation on this case will be this, going with that. But we have seen a reluctance from the client to invest on two boxes. So we came we have worked with the clients with a hybrid model where we leveraged a connection of ECC to S4HANA, and in S4HANA again in turn working as an embedded EWM and embedded TMS to save the money of the customers. We did deploy that one for a few customers. We do have use cases. We have worked on that. That is something which we can work with the client based on the complexity, what they have, what exactly client is looking.
Thank you so much, Kalyan. So this last question is for you, Jude. So we often hear these buzzwords: HANA, SAP HANA, ECC or HANA, S4 HANA. So what is the difference between SAP HANA and SAP S4 HANA? What does it mean for a customer who's presently using ECC?
Well, actually, so in the ECC days, right? So you had the database as well as the application stack completely different, right? So the database was, the customer had an option of going in for whatever database he chooses. So it could be Oracle, it could be SQL Server. So these were the two most popular in those days. So, and people, went one or the other. Now, when the S4HANA started picking up, right? So the first move that happened was that SAP came up with this HANA database, which is real in-memory computing, is what SAP says, and it's pretty fast, and it's a huge database where the entire transactions is on a single database, so you can query it and get it real time. So your analytics is much faster. So the user experience also got much better. This happened somewhere when PHP 5 was launched. Around that time, this move towards HANA happened. So the HANA is actually a database, right? And when the movement to SAP S4HANA happened, it was always a two-step kind of a movement. So from ECC, you first change the database from the Oracle database to the HANA database, and then you do the conversion to SAP S4HANA. That's how the the thing happened. So typically, when you talk about SAP HANA, it's actually the database that we talk about. Some people use it to refer to ECC on HANA. ECC on HANA is a HANA database. The database has changed to HANA, but the the ERP stack still remains SAP ECC. So that means none of the functionalities change. It's only the underlying database that changes. So it's more a kind of a database switch. But when you're talking about SAP S4HANA, there's a change in the database, but there's also the change in the data model. So that's the basic difference.
All right. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Jude, for answering that. So that brings us to the end of our 4th episode. Now, I would like to express my gratitude to our experts for sharing their experience. We were fascinated by what we have learned about warehouse challenges and solutions today. I'm sure there would be more questions, and you could always address it to us on our email address, that is ewm@yash.com. That is ewm@yash.com. And do attend our next webinar, which is on 14th of July, which will cover best practices for integrating warehouse automation and SAP EWM. Thanks for joining. See you folks next time.
Thank you. Thank you, Naveen. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.